Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the day after Easter. Always a very, very significant day. The day after the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Made even more significant because it was between yesterday and today that the solemn Pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church passed on, Pope Francis. It's very, very significant that it looks like he died on Easter or shortly thereafter. It was announced around noon or a bit after noon today. He had been ill a few weeks ago to the point where they were talking about bringing the cardinals to Rome. And then he seemed to have made a recovery, but never a strong enough recovery to make it back to the Vatican. He went to I hate to call it a halfway house because that's what they call prison situations, but a step down unit from the hospital. And he appeared yesterday. He didn't look well. Did he? But I don't know that he looked like he was a few hours from dying. But he apparently wasn't going to make an appearance. The Mass was said by other cardinals, the traditional Easter Mass, at which our vice president was a guest along with his wife and children. Our vice president met with the Pope. Don't know if it was on the Saturday or the Sunday, maybe the day before he died. And actually, that photo, he looked okay. So let's see. Let's see a little recreation of that.
Let's play the video from his last.
Let's play the last videos that we have of
last appearance
of Pope Francis. May he rest in peace.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua. Benedicat vos, omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
That was, I guess, would be the last public appearance of the Pope. That would be the last public appearance of the Pope before he passed away. The exact hour is not known at this point. Well, sometime between then and this morning, and now. All of the ceremonies have taken place that are 1,000 years old, or about 1,000 years old, about what happens with the death of the Pope. His chambers have been cleared out. They've been locked. They've been locked with a very old-fashioned lock made up of plastic and various other forms that harden against the door, and that have to be smashed open when the new Pope goes in there. But no one will be able to go in there now for, well, it'll be about 10 days for mourning the Pope. His funeral will be at some point along that continuum. Someone had said, today is Monday, correct? Right. So someone had said either right before or right on the weekend. And believe, need about 12 days to come together officially. That doesn't mean they don't start coming here immediately, or if they aren't here already, and begin their informal discussions about the selection of a new pope. I am suspecting, not only am I suspecting, but I've read any number of places with leaks that the cardinals were anticipating the Pope's death, and actually were anticipating coming here about 3 weeks ago, even possibly for a meeting with him before he died. That never did take place. And that didn't happen. But in any case, they were all on alert. This was not a surprise. This was something they were expecting. It was something they were ready for 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So, whereas sometimes when it's a sudden death of a pope, it takes a while for all of the cardinals to get here on time for the consistory, this will probably happen very quickly, or on time. It can't happen quicker than the designated period of time. The choices of pope are always of great fascination to the whole world. And the process is of great fascination to the whole world because it's an ancient one, but nowadays not such an inscrutable one, right? If there are two movies that describe this. One is, I believe, called The Shoes of the Fisherman, which stars Anthony Quinn as the surprise selection for Pontiff. And at the time, the selection is of a Russian Roman Catholic as Pontiff in order to ward off a nuclear war between China, and then it's hard to know whether it's China and the United States and Russia, or China and Russia and the United States. It's at a point at which Russia and China did not have as solid a relationship, if it is all that solid, as they do today. And it was a great novel, a great best-selling novel that was made into an equally great movie with a whole cavalcade of stars playing the roles of a selection of a pope during the Cold War. The latest movie, which might still be, I don't know, Ted, if that movie is still in the movie theaters or the current movie about the selection of the Pope, which has been both praised and criticized, praised for its accuracy and criticized for its inaccuracy. And of course, as you would imagine, in a process as complex as that, my criticism of the movie is not at all the mistakes they might make. After all, it is a somewhat inscrutable process, a process that is not done out in the open. So an awful lot of patchwork has to be done to put it together accurately. This present movie spends more time actually on the deliberations and how the deliberations take place. The other one, deliberations, was just a maybe a 20% part of the movie. Here it's about a 40%, maybe 50% part of the movie. I'm more than anxious to tell you the ending, because the ending, to me, I thought it was a rather good movie. A lot of people disagree, except for the ending, which is absurd. It was an absolutely absurd, silly, almost sophomoric ending. As to the depiction of the cardinals and how accurate they're debating during the solemn deliberations within the Sistine Chapel, whether that really takes place that way. Many experts say no, they got it wrong. Most of the discussions and decisions, which neither movie really captured, if the experts who write on this are correct, will take place now as they come together and sit informally outside of they're locked up like a jury. When it finally happens, the Camerlengo, who is the Chamberlain, will open the doors of the Sistine Chapel. The cardinals who are allowed to vote will march in. The only cardinals allowed to vote have to be they have to not have reached their 80th birthday, which disqualifies a fair number of cardinals. I don't know what the exact number is, but I'm making a quick guess. It's about 110, 109, 110 that fit the 11 that fit the category. Now, you're going to ask me the question, suppose they become 80 during the consistory, the process. And now I'm going to give you a guess. I'm sure of this. If they're not 80 at the time that it opens, on the day that door opens in the Sistine Chapel, they're included. So they can have their birthday party inside. Here's the question. If they become 80 between now and the day that door opens, are they included? I'll have to find out the answer to that. Interesting. But for sure, if they're, let's say, one day away from their 80th birthday, on the day the door opens, they come in and they are counted. If they are 80 or one day over, they don't get in. Question is, does the time period start running when the door opens, or does this time period start running? Did the time period start running some days before, when the official consistory, which is what they're called, is put together? And it is made up of all of the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church that have been designated now, except those 80 or older. And that is not a recent rule. That's a very, very, very old rule. So I actually, at one point during one of these deliberations, went to look it up. That's kind of strange. Church has always had a lot of old people. And they must have just come up with this thing. But this is a fairly old, venerable tradition that at 80, you don't get to vote. You're still a cardinal. You have all the powers of a cardinal. But you do not get to vote on the Pope. So they're all heading for Rome now. They will stay in they'll stay in an inner sanctum of the Vatican, which I just walked through about a month and a half ago, very quickly, to walk into the Sistine Chapel. And it is, oh my goodness, it looks like a college campus, I would say. Now, this has been redone in the last decade or two, because literally they used to have little cots all over the various parts of the city. Can you imagine? 78-year-old cardinal living on a little cot inside each one is allowed to take one priest with him as an aide. When I say with him, now, if you've seen the Keys of the Kingdom, you'll remember that all the priest aides are dismissed when the cardinals get beyond the gate of the Sistine Chapel. So if you've been to the Sistine Chapel, you'll know it's one big chapel. The beautiful top of it is, of course, the great paintings of Michelangelo, and the most famous of all, the Creation, with God laying his hand out to the resting hand of Adam. That's above. But below, the chapel is divided into two parts. The outer part, which is really for the public, and there's a gate there, beautiful gate, and a door that opens. When the first session is held for the selection of the Pope, that room will be completely clear. No one will be there. The cardinals will come in procession, two at a time, with their priest aides with them. And the cardinals, will go beyond the gate into the inner sanctum of the chapel, and the priests, their aides, will remain outside, available if necessary. When they are all sitting, and the Sistine Chapel is now being designed for their seats. Many of the murals on the wall are going to be covered by these large seats that look like elaborate choir stalls. And each cardinal has one, and they're lined up on both sides of the inner sanctum. Gate then closes. The Camerlengo gives the signal. All the priests scurry out. All the aides and bishops scurry out. And the only people that remain are cardinals less than the age of 80 of the Roman Catholic Church. And they begin their deliberations. And they take 2 votes immediately, right away. And if they have if they haven't reached a result, which is a 2/3 vote, you will see black smoke go up. All of the ballots are put in a furnace, burned with black tar. Puff of smoke is a white puff, and the whole crowd goes crazy. I don't know of a pope, certainly not in my lifetime, that's ever been elected on the first ballot. That's rather rare because you need 2/3 vote. The average time is about 2 days. You really have to go back beyond my lifetime and probably all of us listening for a lengthy session of days and weeks. Usually it's 2 days and 6 or 7 votes. And it sort of narrows as far as we can tell. No one really knows exactly. I mean, it's all based on the 2 movies that exist. And it also is based on various various books that have been written about these sessions and how popes are selected. As far as I know, there's not much debate in the chapel itself, if any. They just vote. They walk up and they put their vote, I believe, in a chalice. So let's say Cardinal let's pick any cardinal. Walks up. I actually don't know what order. I imagine they go in the order of seniority, but that, my friend, is a guess. I'll find out. There's a presiding cardinal and an assistant to the presiding cardinal. They also vote, of course, but the rest of the cardinals sit facing each other on either side of the Sistine Chapel. Imagine with some of the greatest paintings in the history of the world around them. And of course, some of the greatest history that's ever been made in the history of the world surrounding it. And they vote. And when they don't reach a verdict, a vote on the first 2 votes, the first day, which is probably likely, right? They then take a break. They have religious services as part of that. I'm not sure they say mass or exactly what happens, but then they break and they go to their really dormitories, which is right 300 yards away, 400 yards away, in another big courtyard, and much more modern, recently built. And it's during those periods of the time that they make their decisions in smaller groups, having dinner together, sitting and talking to each other. Whether they're organized meetings or not, or they decide. There's no form that they follow. They have those discussions on their own, and then the next morning, I believe they will get up, go to mass, and when the mass is over, they'll begin voting again. And then when they reach something better than a 2/3 vote or better, instead of emitting black smoke, they are very careful, take out all of the ingredients that would create the black smoke, and you see the first puff of white smoke. If it's already been a day, the crowd gasps. Again, every once in a while, it's followed by black smoke, and everyone goes, oh. And then you see the second white one and the third white one. And now you have a new Pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church in the solemn theology and belief of the Roman Catholic Church, which I share. We now have a new successor of St. Peter, who stands as the vicar of Christ, Christ's representative on earth. An extraordinarily awesome position, except for the strange histories of the Middle Ages and that sort of thing. Despite, I even think some of the narrative in the new movie, where people were lusting for it. I think The Shoes of the Fisherman is probably more accurate. There, they do have one or two cardinals that really want it, but they're rather discreet about their wanting it. Probably would be The Kiss of Death to want it too much. And also, I do think the massive weight placed on your shoulders, particularly in the last 100 years, being the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, particularly for a man, I mean, the youngest man that I can think of that has ever been selected in modern times was in his late 50s, right? So for an older, and usually older, this is a massive responsibility, and these are very, very dedicated men, humble. It's not what you think. It's sometimes accepted with great reluctance, but it will not be turned down. There would have to be something wrong with you. I mean, something wrong with you to do it, because it's your religious responsibility to take it on. So it is quite a ceremony. You may not get to see it again. Who knows? They might elect this time a very young pope who could be there for 30 years. Or they could elect, as they have been lately, electing older popes. Although several of them have had fairly lengthy reigns. You know, Benedict could have been pope until about 2 years ago. He resigned, and that's how we got Pope Francis. So that's all going to start now. His chambers have been closed. He's going to be put in state very shortly. His mass may have already been announced. We'll find out. And I see from interviews on television here in America that my friend and man I admire so much, Cardinal Dolan, is getting ready to head over there. I don't know that I should. I don't know that you should have a candidate for Pope like you do for president, but and of course they're all wonderful men, but there's one great man. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Anything we miss on that?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you. If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. That guy's amazing and he's staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Lindell. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Lindell. You won't believe how simple it is.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with you. I think you see that the background that we have is the nighttime at St. Peter's Basilica. That's the great entrance to the Basilica that, of course, will be now until the selection of the new Pope. It'll be crowded every day and possibly through the night. People will have vigils there. Of course, it'll be most populated at the times that the votes are taking place with the anticipation of a new Pope. There might also be the feeling that given the fact that the demise of this Pope has been predicted for some time, that it might happen quicker than one might think. So, meaning they might have already had discussions. Nothing prohibits that. I mean, nothing would prohibit a bishop in Brazil calling up a bishop in Spain and or a cardinal rather, and saying, you know, I wonder if the Pope's chief of staff would be the right person. Would it be too much of a continuation of this Pope? Is that what we want, or do we want someone who has a slightly different viewpoint? Or there's always the outside chance of trying to make history. Now, how would you do that? Well, they made history with the selection of this Pope. He was a first generation South American, first South American selected for the papacy, but he was a first generation Italian. His family came from Italy. Now, his father was a first generation South American. The newspapers today say that his whole family was. I don't believe that's right. I believe that his mother was a second generation. I do. And we're going to have to check that very carefully. Let's see if my recollection is better than the way it was described in the article that I have here. lists him as a as just having come from Italy. Later on in the show, because we wanted to cover some other things, we'll take you through a little bit of his life and what prepared him for it, and the fact that he was a somewhat unusual pope. Some ways traditional, and in some ways very non-traditional, and to my view, very much affected by what's called liberation theology. Not to the far degree of liberation theology, which is pretty close to been declared heresy, but certainly the more acceptable parts of it. Liberation theology emerged in South America, and it's returning of the church to the people, influenced us to a great extent by sort of an answer to Marxism on its own terms. Take the church away from the elite, and then it got kind of wild in some of its pronouncements and the things that it did, and so you'd have the more conservative version of it and the more unacceptable version of it. And although I don't think that that the Pope, who was a Jesuit priest, again, the first Jesuit priest to be a Pope, which is really unusual. But Jesuits, not so unusual if you know the history of the church. Jesuits were always seen as renegades. And in that sense, he was a disappointing Jesuit. One would have thought he would be more of a thinker than he was, and more of a pioneer for new directions. He flirted with them. He opened the door to them, and then a few he would make comments about, but only like he flirted with the idea of opening up the priesthood to married people. To a certain extent, you don't know this, it is opened up to married people in this way. If a group of Eastern, let's say Greek Catholics or Russian Catholics of the Eastern Orthodox version, as opposed to the Roman Catholic version, of which there are small groups, want to become Roman Catholics, they can be brought over with some instruction and some refinement. And if they're married, they're allowed to remain married. The same thing would be true with an Anglican priest. And there are, and this would have always very unusual to people, there are within the Catholic Church married priests. And they fall into one of those very, very odd exceptions of people who converted from another form of Catholicism, not Roman Catholicism, Greek Catholicism, Russian Catholicism, other forms of Eastern Catholicism, Coptic. The second possibility that could exist is that the priest could have been, let's say here's an interesting case that I remember once when I was teaching catechism or religion. I was asked by a very enterprising student, what happens if a Greek Orthodox bishop what happens if a Greek Orthodox bishop wants to become a Catholic priest? Does he become just a priest, or does he come over as a bishop? Well, first of all, in the Greek Orthodox Church, in the Russian Orthodox Church, in almost all the Orthodox churches that I'm aware of, including the smaller versions, the bishops cannot marry. The priest can. It's a strange thing. And I do believe you have to make your decision before you enter the priesthood. So you become a priest and you're married. Now you're disqualified from being a bishop. So you always get you always get very interesting questions from smart students. Here's the question. Suppose you're a Russian bishop, Russian Orthodox. You want to become a Catholic priest and Catholic bishop. Can you do that? Yes. You first have to become a priest, and then they have to separately make you a bishop, or recognize that you are a bishop. You wouldn't necessarily recognize both at once, but they might. But suppose you decide at this point, since you're making the switch, interesting what kids will ask you in class, right? If you're making the switch and you're a Russian bishop, not married, because you can't be, but you're willing to just be a Russian priest or now Roman Catholic priest, can you get married? In other words, can you switch back to being a Russian priest? Go, no more bishop, now I'm a priest. Now as a Russian priest, I can get married. Can I get married? And then I can stay in the Catholic Church married. Answer is no. If you're already married, because you're a Russian priest that's married, or a Greek priest that's married, or a Coptic priest that's married, or a Ukrainian priest, you come in with wifey and kids, and you're still a Catholic priest. Very unusual. People walk around shamed, right? Oh my God, look at the priest with his family. Perfectly okay. But once you become a bishop, you can no longer marry in that church. And that doesn't change. You may revert to being a priest, but that doesn't help you. And nor would it help you because you have to be married before you're a priest. So it doesn't work that way. But isn't it interesting? That would be the question. So all of that, it was thought that maybe that was going to change, and the Roman Catholic Church would accept more of the rules of the Eastern versions of Catholicism, which are, of course, just as devout and just as valid and just as much from Jesus Christ as the Roman version or even Latin version. And there was great disappointment when rule was kept very, very much the same, except that there probably is a little bit more. Liberality in taking in priests of other versions of Catholicism who are allowed to be married into the church. I believe that's correct. Then, of course, the woman priesthood is another thing that was thought about and rejected. It's all going to be accepted at some point. Don't know when. But they all fall under the same pope if they're part of the Roman Catholic Church. The one you're most familiar with is the Latin Rite, but it includes a Greek Rite, a Russian Rite, and a Coptic Rite, and we can go on and on. In fact, when you see the cardinals coming in, you will see cardinals that are dressed up like what you would think of as Eastern Orthodox priests, because that's the way they dress. They're cardinals. So it's a very interesting process we have ahead of us. So we'll go back to it toward the end and tell you a little about the biography of the Pope that has now passed away as the Church tries to determine its future at a very, very volatile period of time. And it seems over the last 50 years, or since the advent of communism, which is a direct challenge to the Catholic Church in particular, selections of popes have become very, very monumental and very important. So this case of Abrego Garcia is very, very strange. that the Democrat Party is trying to make him a cause celeb. Now, either he was or he wasn't put on the list to be sent out and put in the prison in El Salvador correctly. It was either a mistake or it wasn't. Depends on who you believe. And there is a last order allowing it to be done. And then, of course, there's the complication that the judge issued an order to have them returned. But apparently that order was issued either when they were outside of the jurisdiction of the United States or already in South America. And therefore, nothing could be done about it. It really would have been a decision of a government that had accepted them. And the government that accepted them, as you might know from the president of the country, who has acted extremely definitive about this, is not about to return any of them, now that he has them. And he has them in a top security prison because whether he fits our rules completely, he certainly fits, and this is the part that is so deceptive. He certainly is a member, and a very, very significant member of the gang that is so dangerous, MS-13, and there is one piece of proof after another of that. In fact, he was excluded from the United States twice based on that evidence. And then a couple of years ago, he was relieved of that because he alleged that if he went back to Venezuela, to Salvador, he would be killed by a rival gang. And the judge accepted that and therefore gave him asylum after it had been denied twice on the grounds that he was a member of the MS-13. He was arrested with two of them that had committed a murder. There was more than the usual proof that he was a member, and a high-ranking member suspected of murder. He did have a history of significant wife abuse, which she seems to be very, very frightened to repeat now. You can't blame her, right? When he was one of the times he was arrested, he was, and they have this evidence and have shown it. He had rolls of cash and drugs that were seized from him, and he was arrested with two other members of MS-13. There was an affidavit from a proven and reliable source that he was a high-ranking member of the MS-13 gang. In 2019, he attempted to get bond, and he was denied bond based on the court's decision. Quote, the evidence shows that he's a verified member of MS-13. And then a police report from 2019 said that he was an active member of MS-13. Now, Von Dopey Dope Holland keeps saying he's not a member of MS-13. This is a quote from Von Hopel, who says, I want to emphasize that President Trump and our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Vice President of the United States are lying when they say that Abrego Garcia has been charged with a crime or is a part of MS-13. Well, first of all, I don't think they said he's been charged with a crime. He hasn't actually been charged with a crime, but he has been alleged to be a member of MS-13 at least 5 separate times. without dispute. In fact, the holdup in deporting him was that he might be killed by a rival gang, which also supports the fact that he was a member of MS-13. So now the Supreme Court has ordered the Trump administration to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S. from El Salvador. I do not know what that means, to facilitate. It's not. The United States has turned them over to El Salvador, and it's El Salvador that has to decide whether they're going to return him or not return him. And the desire to get this guy back is sick. They're absolutely sick. The wife was on television this weekend and was directly asked if she was, and the evidence is overwhelming that she reported him twice for brutally beating her. She was asked about that, and she just stopped answering. And of course, the reporter who aids and abets MS-13 didn't press her and just said, I'm sorry I asked that question. Can you imagine that? You're sorry you asked the question whether her husband beat the living crap out of her, and we're trying to get him back in the United States so we can do it again? Do we have that on? Do we have that video, Ted?
Next hour we can play it. Still,
we don't have that video of him on of the Q&A with Senator Van Hoopel.
Yeah, we'll have that at the top of next hour.
Okay. Well, Senator Van Hoopel, of course, did not repeat the denial that he's a member of MS-13 on his 4 or 5 Sunday shows. He completely avoided it. And when the woman was asked about whether she was beaten by the husband she once met brutally, so that twice she reported him, she just refused to answer. And the reporter, showing his clear, overwhelming bias, apologized basically for asking the question. Wow. The Supreme Court now is all upset because the Supreme Court says that the Supreme Court isn't sure that the law being used for some of these deportations by the president, not all of them, but some of them is applicable. Now, they don't know because they haven't heard the case yet. So now they are basically halting any exclusion that the Trump administration would do based on any kind of wartime powers. So Charlie Kirk has quoted saying, hang on, wait until they get a chance to look at the whole case. The full court has repeatedly upheld the president's power to preserve the border. So we'll have to see. Part of this is that it is being presented to the court in piecemeal fashion. Now, here you could blame everybody for presenting it that way. Well, you could somewhat blame the court for being unrealistic and expecting that a whole situation has to develop like in a classroom before you can rule on it, because these are affecting things in the real world, not in the classroom. But, when you sit on the bench, even if you're a great Supreme Court justice, there is an unreality that time stands still for you. And it doesn't, unfortunately. The Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, another one of the very, very distinguished members of the Marxist Party otherwise known originally as the Democrat Party, says that President Trump is more dangerous than the MS-13 member Garcia. He's a lot less criminal than the person that's sitting in the White House. Now, that's an absolutely absurd statement. It's an absolutely absurd statement. I mean, this is an enormously serious issue. And we have half-wit jackasses like this shooting their mouths off. And they expect us to take them seriously. And Van Hollen, this is the best he can do for his country. To go down there, visit with the guy, and just play patsy for him. It's like the guy turned him around and did it in his backside to him. And he said, "Thank you, that was very pleasurable." I mean, no questions. Like, what's that on? First question I'd ask him, I take his arm out. I said, "What's that on your arm?" Isn't that the kind of thing you get when you become a member of MS-13? Don't you get one of those? And don't those 4 symbols stand for MS-13 here? I brought one with me. It's just like that. Yeah, and if I help to get you back, you're going to continue to beat the shit out of your wife or girlfriend or wherever the hell she is. Because next time you might kill her. Who knows? And I'll be complicit in bringing you in. And you ask him any questions like that? Well, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Ted?
Yeah.
Tell me when I'm off. Take a look at the camera. It's down to one